Welcome to my channel. My name's Bissy and the Vampire Lestat has limits. A while ago, I created a video on SHOW Lestat's powers. Now that's still one of my favourite videos, but season 3 has made me think. SHOW Lestat until now has been unable to assimilate his darkest memories or experiences, and so therefore has never had full control over his emotions and or his actions. He's often driven by his impulses as a result. This experience, the documentary, the failures, I think has set SHOW Lestat on the road to fully accepting everything that makes him, him. And that also includes his limitations. In this video, I'll be breaking down SHOW Lestat's limitations. If you enjoy this type of video, please let me know by hitting like and subscribe. And with that said, let's get into the breakdown. Lestat can be injured pretty badly. Now, having the blood of Akasha in him seems to make SHOW Lestat pretty bold. In episode 1 of the Vampire Lestat, before he takes on the Fang Gang, Lestat feels like he could take on 20 all at once, all because he has the blood of Akasha in him. We soon find out that even with Akasha's blood, Lestat is still able to be terribly injured. Deep lacerations, broken bones, for example. Then, of course, we have the aftermath of Mardi Gras in 1940. We see in episode 2 of the Vampire Lestat that Lestat is pretty much completely healed by the next night. Now, that could be attributed to Gabriella's healing blood. We see just how quickly a single drop heals his skin. But it could also have something to do with having Akasha's blood. Maybe that's the real strength. Not that he's unable to be really hurt, but instead, her blood allows him to heal very quickly. What do you think? Now, speaking of Akasha's blood, we learn in season 2, episode 8, that Lestat can't be taken up by fire, unless he's willing. However, that isn't to say that he can't be harmed by it. Fire's direct and intense power is yet to be tested against SHOW Lestat's flesh. And I wonder if it really will be put to the test. As a result of the burden of immortality, Lestat is limited in his emotional growth, in my opinion. Now, please understand me, I don't mean that Lestat is stunted or stuck at a certain level of emotional maturity. I mean that the amount of continuous and evolving emotional growth that Lestat is capable of has a limit. This is because, just like it is with all vampires, Lestat is enduring the true cost of living as long as he has. Losing loved ones again and again, but at the same time taking the lives of others, nearly every night. The detachment from mortal morality that is necessary to survive as a vampire precludes Lestat from truly having a limitless capacity for emotional growth. Now, that's not to say that he has no capacity for it, of course he does, but it is limited in my opinion. Now, in episode 2 of the Vampire Lestat, we learn that Lestat feeds mostly from donated blood, and that he doesn't end many lives anymore. But this is now, and there's been multiple centuries where this just wasn't the case. Despite Lestat being nearly 300 years old, he's still limited to the darkness. We learn in season 1, episode 7, that the sun loses its power over the SHOW vampires as they age. The sun has very little power over Armand, who at this point is over 500 years old. He's also able to teach daywalking to Daniel, who seems to suffer nothing more severe than a deep suntan. Now, currently, we don't know the ins and outs of this ability, and I believe that that's because Lestat's knowledge or power is limited in this area, at this time. In season 1, episode 2, we see Lestat shield himself from the sun to open the gate for Louis. And earlier in season 3, he says to Daniel, "The sustained heat from the sun, these are things that might destroy me, but maybe not." However, at present, the sun's effect on Lestat doesn't seem to be quite as devastating as it was for Claudia and Madeleine. Now, Louis, of course, healed with the help of Armand's ancient blood and time spent in his coffin after his exposure to the sun in 1973. However, Lestat's injuries from daywalking in 2025, although severe, aren't life-threatening, as far as we've seen. And although that is advantageous, he's still limited to the darkness. Now, can we imagine a daywalking SHOW Lestat? Double the trouble? I think so. Okay, quick side note. This is a light spoiler for future books. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers at all for future books, skip to this timestamp. We know that Lestat has the blood of Akasha in him, which Lestat loves to say, by the way. And of course, this provides him a lot of protections. In the novel The Tale of the Body Thief, Lestat teases the son in the most direct way. After this, he has the effect of a really deep tan for a long while. The vampires in the novels have very, very cold and pale skin, and this tan helped Lestat to appear healthy and mortal. But as SHOW Lestat doesn't have this problem, I wonder if they'll weave this in at any point. No matter how hard he tries, Lestat is often governed by his emotions and very often his temper. In Season 3, we learn that having the blood of Akasha on him changed him. Lestat saw himself as an ape prior to becoming a vampire. He raised his voice at his father and brothers as a young man, and slaps his hand on the table as he does so. He aims a rifle at his brother and his expecting wife, also at the dining table, before he goes to Paris. But other than that, we haven't seen Lestat really lose his temper in the same disastrous way that he does post-feeding from the Queen. Now, I say this with the massive caveat that we've only heard Lestat's telling of this time period of his life. And of course, he dreamt of going from room to room, massacring his father and brothers. And soon after he's turned, and after Gabriella encourages it, that's exactly what they do. However, unlike Louis's murderous rage, which burns incredibly bright but also burns out very quickly, or Armand's simmering anger, which lasts for years and manifests in his planning and long-term manipulation to achieve his aims, Lestat's temper is explosive. He explodes very often, even with strangers, but he also has the capacity to lose control completely, and that is a problem. It's a problem for his relationships, it's a problem for his victims who fall in his path, and ultimately is a problem for the wider vampiric community. Lestat says that having the blood of Akasha in him is like this.
Let me tell you something about this blood. I let myself be buried in it until the Queen took pity and summoned me to service.
I am the answer!
This is the metal sun inside my veins. This is the hell I unleash on all those near me. It cannot be restrained in the moment. It will drag you into depravity. So follow Larry to a better life.
He manages to control it most of the time, but he knows the destruction he's capable of, if and when he completely loses control. And as a result, Lestat loses everything at one point. He's still working on getting those things back. And he's still dealing with the consequences of those actions over 80 years later. Lestat has a certain level of detachment from his loved ones. Now, of course, I'm not saying that Lestat is unfeeling. We know that he feels very deeply for the people he loves. But I believe the side effects of his childhood trauma limit him in his relationships. Let's look at the relationship between SHOW Lestat and SHOW Claudia. From what we've seen of actual SHOW Lestat in Season 2, Episode 8, and throughout the Vampire Lestat via his voiceovers, we can see for ourselves, and without Louis's lens, what Claudia actually means to him. Lestat's reaction to seeing Regina, followed by the heartbreaking song written for Claudia afterwards, Stained Glass Eyes, is evidence enough for me. But it's a complicated love, stemming from, in my opinion, Lestat's inability to parent Claudia in the way that she needed, which I believe is a direct response to his father's abuse and his mother's abuse and abandonment. And when she no longer needed or wanted his parenting, he was unable to provide her with what she needed as a companion. Very much like the experience that he endured throughout his own childhood. His emotional needs were not met by either parent in the way that he needed. And of course, this was the 18th century and that just wasn't a priority. But the monsters who raised him abused and neglected him regularly. He knew what he needed his mother's love. But she would not or could not give it to him. Instead, she uses his need for her love to twist and manipulate his feelings. She uses him to antagonize her husband and her other sons. and is currently using him to fulfill her plan for the Great Conversion. Learning the true horrors that Gabriella subjected and continues to subject Lestat to in Season 3 further explains his fear of abandonment, how her abandonment in particular cripples him. On the shores of Spain, Gabriella left Lestat with not much more than a few hair clippings and a necklace. The same necklace he would later give to Claudia. He holds on to Louis so incredibly tightly that eventually he loses him. Now, parenting, love, abandonment, and loss are all tied up in Lestat's childhood trauma, in my opinion. I mean, he developed a stutter that lasted 20 years after Gabriella forced him to watch his friends burn. So with all that said, I believe his inexperience with healthy or even genuine love, plus his fear of abandonment by those he loves most, greatly limits Lestat in his relationships, and how deeply they're able to connect outside of their vampire bond. As much as he wants to be loved back, I don't know that we've seen Lestat surrender 100% of himself. Well, actually, I take that back. Season 3 Lestat seems to really be trying. He and Louis seem to have made incredible strides forward with their communication, trust of one another, and telling the truth this time, forgiveness and moving past the past. Plus, their affection. So although he might not be all the way there, maybe Lestat can overcome this particular limitation. So what would you say Lestat is limited by? Did I get anything wrong or miss anything out? Let me know in the comments. It'll be great to hear from you. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please subscribe and I'll see you in my next one. Thank you. Bye.